There is a certain kind of person who is very strange. They walk into a room and almost instantly feel that something is off. No one is raising their voice, there is no drama. But their brain has already finished scanning everything. An avoided glance, a forced smile, a sentence full of hidden fake energy. Many think this observation is a superpower, a wonderful gift. But the truth is, this sharp awareness is actually a psychological trap. The problem is that their brain has no off switch. They cannot just enjoy the moment. They take it home and analyze it. They pick it apart, analyze it, and replay it in their head again and again. They are the kind of person who can turn one small silence into an entire universe of thoughts. But if you know someone like this, you already know it isn't easy. Because hyperawareness is not just an intelligence issue. It is about constantly seeing the hidden layers of meaning that others walk right past. It can feel like a gift, but it is also a cruel burden that drains emotional energy. Today, we are going to decode the psychology of people who are over-aware and how they can avoid being swallowed by their own mind. First, we have to dig into the origin of this sharp awareness. Why do some people become overly aware? Empirical psychology usually divides this phenomenon into two main groups. For the first group, this sensitivity is simply inborn. Science calls them highly sensitive persons, HSP. People who carry the trait known as sensory processing sensitivity, SPS. Their nervous system, from the moment they are born, is like an ultra-fine filter.
Imagine your mind as a sieve
that automatically absorbs and feels everything more intensely than usual. For them, the world always appears in extremely high resolution. However, for the second group, over-awareness is not something they were born with. It is an inheritance of survival. Neuroscience calls this state hypervigilance. It often takes root in an emotionally unstable environment in the past, most commonly during childhood. Imagine a child growing up in a house where the mood of the adults changes like the weather. That child cannot live innocently. They have to learn how to become a radar station. They might have been the kind of child who memorized the sound of car tires rolling into the garage just to know whether their father was coming home drunk or sober. They learned to hear the sound of a kitchen cabinet slamming and measure how angry their mother was. They knew exactly when to step into the living room and smile. An indistinct, soft, resonant sound of biologically speaking, their amygdala, the brain's danger alarm center, has been constantly activated. It records a message. This environment is not safe. No one taught them this, but their nervous system automatically built a network of neurons. And over time, that survival vigilance transforms into awareness. That awareness grows so deep that it becomes part of their identity. When they become adults, they often look back and blame themselves. Why do I always overthink? Something must be wrong with me. But no, they are not broken. They are simply carrying a kind of intelligence that was shaped by survival. The shield that once protected them has now fused into their skin. Let's move to sign 1. Living in constant analysis mode. This is the clearest sign, and also the one that consumes the most energy. For a typical person, a conversation is just a conversation. But for them, the mind is always running a hidden equation. Take a real example. Their boss sends a message on Slack at 4 p.m. Come see me for a minute later. For other people, that's simply a meeting. But for them, the moment they read the message, a wave of tension immediately appears. They sense something unusual in the wording. They feel the atmosphere of the sender and instantly begin questioning themselves. Is my boss upset? Did I mess something up? They don't just hear words, they notice the 3-second pause before someone compliments the shirt they are wearing. They catch a very slight change in the other person's breathing. Part of this phenomenon is related to the activity of the default mode network, DMN, the internal system involved in reflection and self-referential thinking. In most people, this mental state becomes active mainly during daydreaming or rest. But in people who are overtly aware, this network tends to be more active, which makes the mind slip into constant analysis and interpretation. Half of them is nodding, smiling, holding a warm cup, and participating in life. But the other half is taking notes, comparing details, and analyzing everything. The result is that their mind rarely gets any real rest. They can feel exhausted even after spending the whole day sitting in an office. because their brain has just finished running a hidden marathon. That analysis does not only point outward, it turns the camera inward, creating sign 2, hyper-self-awareness. In psychology, metacognition is the ability to think about your own thinking. It is controlled by the prefrontal cortex. Everyone has this ability, but for them, it is a switch that never turns off. They do not just feel an emotion, they monitor it. The familiar chain reaction often looks like this. An emotion appears, followed by analyze it, and then judge it. They are walking outside and suddenly feel sad. Instead of simply letting themselves feel down, they immediately cross their arms and start judging themselves. Why am I feeling this way? Does this feeling even make sense? Even joy gets dissected. They are at a dinner party and just laughed at a joke, but the very next second, part of their mind is drifting away. Did I laugh too loudly? That might have sounded a little fake, but it is just like dancing while constantly staring at your reflection in a mirror to fix your posture. They may not miss a single step, but they lose the sense of flow. Their depth of awareness increases, but their natural presence slowly disappears. When that analytical camera runs for too long, they move into sign 3, losing innocence in relationships. Deep awareness makes them start to see the backstage of human behavior. Psychology calls this strong inference about other people's intentions. They realize that people do not always say exactly what they think. They see a coworker bring them a coffee and praise the project they just completed. Wow, thank you. Instead of simply enjoying the compliment, their brain immediately scans possible motives. What favor does this person want? Are they hoping I'll share customer data with them? They realize that kindness sometimes comes with conditions. Affection can sometimes be a calculated investment, and the confidence of a man on a date might simply be a curtain hiding his fear of rejection. This creates a quiet kind of loss. It is not the loss of childhood innocence, but the loss of relational innocence. The ability to fully trust the surface of words is no longer there. As a result, a compliment always seems to carry layers. An apology never feels complete because they suspect the other person is apologizing just to calm the situation, not because they truly accept fault. A promise sounds fragile. They do not become bitter or hateful toward the world. They simply become extremely cautious. And sometimes they feel lonely, even in a crowd, because no one else seems to see the layer of truth they are seeing. And that layer of truth is not just logical reasoning. It sinks into their feelings, leading to sign 4. Empathy that is always switched on. For them, empathy is not a skill they choose to use when a friend is crying, but it is a state that cannot be turned off. They walk into a meeting room, no one says a word, but they can feel the weight of irritation between two coworkers. Their mind works like a sheet of absorbent paper. Psychology calls this ability cognitive empathy. But for people who are overly aware, it does not stop at understanding with the mind. It crosses into emotional empathy. This phenomenon is closely connected to neural systems that process empathy, especially mirror neurons. When they see someone expressing emotion, these neurons in their brain activate as if they themselves are experiencing that same emotion.